Hi guys, and welcome to my very first ever video. Sorry about the dust. Good grief, you don't realize how gross things are until you start deciding to videotape, right? So anyway, um today I'd like to start out with just a few kind of basics. First thing I'd like to start off with is just some of the tools that you're going to need in order to crochet. Obviously you're going to need a crochet hook. And let's go ahead and make the distinction that people that crochet use a hook. um, like this. This is just your standard crochet hook here. There are multiple different kinds. My mother-in-law preferred this kind here, which I will say they are definitely easier to use than this green one here. Only because if you look at the yarn, it kind of doesn't really go into this and like kind of stick into it. You're more likely to not hook the yarn. With this one, because it actually has such a deep indent, um, you're gonna hook the yarn and you're not gonna let go, which is sometimes a downside to using a hook like this. I will say these are definitely easier than this. However, because I have carpal tunnel, I can't use metal hooks like this. Um, I lose my grip too easily, way too quickly, because of the fact that you're holding on to something so tiny. Now, I will also tell you there is no right or wrong way to hold your crochet hook. You will see me hold it a certain way, and you'll probably watch other videos where someone holds it a different way. The best thing I can tell you is hold it in whichever way feels comfortable to you. Okay? My mother-in-law held hers like this. Um, and she hooked in and down. I hold it like this. And I've seen multiple different ways. Now you'll see me use something like this. This is this is by a brand named Boye, Boye. It is it they're ergonomic handles. They also have some by, I think it's Susan Bates is who makes this particular style here, that I would like to get this style with this kind of handle. And because these are kind of old, mine just come out. So I have to keep pushing them back in. The other problem is the way they had the size written on these crochet hooks. I have worn it off just by holding on to it, which kind of sucks. But thankfully, when I started noticing that it was wearing down, I wrote all the sizes down, and I know now that this lovely hot pink one here is an eye hook. And I have the actual millimeter size written down. Um, but you'll want to pay attention to that. So, like on this one here, I couldn't find an eye hook in this style in all the hooks I have. But so this one is a J or a number 10. And it also says on here, usually it's on this flat part, it also says 6 millimeters, because across the pond over in the UK, they use the 6 millimeter size. And here in the US, we either use the number or the letter, which is weird, whatever. And then, so like this one, it'll say I-9/9-5.25 millimeters. And I think this one is actually 5.5. That's something that you're going to have to pay attention to, is when you're looking at a pattern, it may call for something for a specific millimeter size hook. You'll want to try to stick with that. If it doesn't say a particular millimeter size hook, and it just says, like, for instance, an I or a J or a K or, whatever, then it's kind of up to you on which one you decide. So my I is this one, and each one of my hooks is a different color. The handle is a different color, which is wonderful. I always have a pair of scissors with me. You have to cut yarn. Duh. you're just going to need it. Um, a yarn needle is kind of important. So I got both of these from my mother-in-law, and they're two different styles. This one here is actually a pointed tip, but if you look at the back, it's got a really large eye on the end of it in order for you to be able to put your yarn into it. And I keep yarn attached to it like this so that way I can find them. Because when you're looking through a pouch, sorry about the noise, and you've got a bunch of silver hooks like this, believe it or not, um there are three needles in this stack right here. Okay, make that two because there's one sitting over here. But so it's a lot easier to go, oh, there's my needle, you know, when it's all said and done, you can just pull this out. So there's that. Now the other style of yarn needle that I have is this one. She gave me this one. This is a dull pointed, like it's pointed, but it's more, it's not, you're gonna stab yourself with it, you know. It's more dull. You can actually rub this across your finger and it, you know, not do anything. This one is actually like pointed, and I'll put them next to each other so you can see the difference. You can also see that one is slightly like thicker than the other, and that's this one. And they both have the big eyes at the end in order for you to, you know, put the yarn through. And same thing, I have yarn put through both of them. So I'm going to move these two out of the way because we're just going to use this one today. The other thing, I invested in this. These are stitch markers, and these are your best friend. Speaking of best friend, my best friend made me some individual ones. She's amazing, and I forgot to bring them for this video. I'll have to show them in another one. But these are just some cheap little plastic stitch markers. They look like little safety pins, which I think is super cute. But they come in two different sizes. They have different colors. I like the different colors because I actually match the colors up with my hook. So like I have pink stitch markers. So if I'm using an eye hook and I want to be done with my, you know, project for the day, I've recently started doing this. I will put a pink stitch marker into my work so that way I know that this pink stitch marker means that I used my pink crochet hook or an eye hook. I recently started doing that. That was not something that I've always done. I just used to throw a stitch marker in there and be like, I don't know what hook I used, and then if I put a project down for too long, I would just forget. So, but they do have two different sizes, which is really nice. And they'll come in handy for like your thicker yarns, which we'll talk about in another video. Your different size yarns and things like that. I will kind of go over that a little bit today, but these are good. The little one is good for just pretty much any size yarn, except for like say maybe your 5s, your 6s, your jumbo size yarn, because this just isn't gonna like go through the full stitch. I think this entire thing cost me like $3. So it wasn't, I got it at Hobby Lobby. It wasn't super expensive. You could find them on Amazon. Once I start getting my affiliate link up and everything, I will start linking some different things that you can buy through Amazon for you know, for crocheting, so that way you have it. The next thing I want to talk about is yarn sizes and how to read a yarn label. So this is your standard Red Heart acrylic yarn. This you can pretty much find anywhere. Most people are like, oh, I don't like acrylic yarn. It's, you know, it's scratchy. It's this, it's that. Yeah, but I don't know if you see this. 482 yards. And you know how much I got this for? $5 at Walmart. So this is 10 ounces of yarn. You're going to need maybe 6 of these to make a full-size blanket. When I say a full-size blanket, I mean to fit on a full-size bed. You know, you're talking 4.5 feet wide by like 5-6 foot long. you know, so you just spent maybe 20, 25 bucks on yarn. I mean, that's amazing. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is this lovely thing here, and I'm sorry it's so blurry. May have to redo this entire video, but so this here, this part of the label will tell you the name of it. Obviously, this one is called Gray Heather. I'm gonna just spin this a bit. And then this over here is actually really important. Now, some yarn brands will say no dye lot. Okay. And a dye lot means they put in a specific number for their dye. And they used it until they ran out. And then they had to do a different lot of dye. And that's what this is. So when you're buying yarn and you're buying all the same color, you need to pay attention. And the Walmart associates will hate you for it. Ask me how I know. Because you've just pulled 20 different skeins of yarn out of their bucket and are looking at this stupid little number, and the lady tells you, but it says it's all the same, and you look at them and go, you obviously don't use yarn on a regular basis, do you? And yes, I'm so sarcastic. Sorry, I can't help it. So yeah, uh she didn't like me very much, but it's all because of this stupid dye lot number. But I was making a shawl, a matching shawl and lap blanket for my aunt who recently passed away. But she was in a nursing home, and they always put the wrong clothes on her. They put summer clothes on her in the winter and winter clothes on her in the summer. So in the winter, she was always cold. So my mom requested a shawl and a lap blanket for her in her wheelchair, and I wanted them to match. Um, so I bought this heather gray and this beautiful like cream color. It was called Aran, Aran, and then a burgundy. And I knew that I was gonna need at least three, maybe four of each color. So I wanted to make sure that all my dye lots matched. And the Walmart associate was super frustrated with me because I was 5 foot tall. I was climbing the shelves, okay, and I was just pulling everything down, and she was not very happy with me. But you know, it is what it is. So, that's something you need to pay attention to in some of your cheaper yarns. You're gonna have dye lots. There are some where it says no dye lot. Those are great. They just are, because it's something you don't have to pay attention to. Is you know, whether or not it's gonna be slightly off in shade. Um, so yeah, the next thing is this whole line right here. So this whole line here has a lot of good information for you. Um, so this actually tells you, this little thing right here will actually tell you that you can wash this, um, but that the highest temperature water that you can use is 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. And the reason for that is if you use anything hotter, the color will bleed. So my suggestion to everybody is, whenever I tell anybody that they can wash or dry any of my stuff, I tell them, hey, just wash it on cold water. I mean, it's an easier thing to do. Just wash it in cold water, no big deal. And then when you dry it, which you can, I always tell everybody to do it either on like an air dry or a light dry. And yeah, it may take longer, or hang it up to dry. If you can hang it up outside or somewhere, that's best. I just don't suggest using a high heat, because I do use acrylic yarn. And acrylic is, guess what? It's a type of plastic, right? Like, it just is. So, and this will also tell you that you cannot you can't use an iron on this and not to dry clean it. So, there's that. Now, red heart yarn you can be used to either crochet with or to knit with. And I'll try to get this a bit closer. Sorry about the blurriness. This is awful. So on these here, it'll tell you that a 4 by 4 inch square um, will be 15 rows and 12 single crochets in order to get an even 4 by 4. And doing that, you'll use an I9 or a 5.5 millimeter hook. And then it'll be the same thing, but different if you knit, which is an entirely different animal that I still have not conquered. Um, so it'll be the same thing, 4 by 4 inch square. It's 17 stitches and 23 rows, is using a 5 millimeter set of needles, which are a number 8 in the US. The other thing that is important is this right here. This is going to tell you that this is a medium weight yarn, or a number 4. The other thing you'll see it called is worsted weight. That's WORSTED, worsted weight. It's just your standard weight of yarn, which is what most people use. Um, is this? This is just your standard. Um, So yeah, so that's your standard. I prefer Red Heart just because it's so cheap, but it's really nice. And yes, it is a bit scratchy right now. Like, sorry, I was playing with it the other day and it, yeah, didn't get redone, but it is a bit scratchy in the beginning and when you first start working with it. But it, like I said, it's cheap, and once you wash it, you never knew. Nobody will know that it once upon a time was a scratchy yarn. I made my best friend a blanket for her birthday a couple years ago, and I made the entire thing out of Red Heart acrylic yarn because I just prefer it. It's cheap. It's, it's still a really good yarn. It's been around for the brand has been around for years and years. And once I washed it, I sent it to her and she was like, "Oh my gosh, Jenny, it's so soft. It's so soft. I absolutely love it." And so later on down the road, she requested something from me and she was like, "Well, I don't want it to be made out of acrylic because acrylic yarn is so scratchy." And I was like, "Oh, so your blanket I made you is scratchy?" And she goes, "Well, no, it's super soft." And I said, "Yeah, well, that's acrylic yarn." And she goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Depending on the brand, once it's washed, here's the thing is, before it's washed, they put like something on it. I don't recall exactly what it is, but they put something on it to basically keep all the fibers together and all of that, which if you see anything loose, that's actually just dog hair because my dog is a husky who doesn't like to be brushed because she's a nightmare. But anyway, um she so yeah, she kept talking about how, no, her blanket was super soft, and I was like, okay, well, once it's washed, you never know, that it was once upon a time scratchy. You just don't. A couple other brands that I like. These are cotton. This is Peaches and Cream and Sugar and Cream. They're two completely different brands, but once again, it'll have, I gotta find it, sorry. It'll have the same thing on your label. The exact same thing. Um, it'll have your size of your yarn. It'll tell you what hook size or needle for knitting size. It'll tell you how you can wash it, what you can wash it with, blah 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 blah. So there's that. I just wanted to do kind of a quick little. I guess that wasn't quick, was it? 20 minutes. Guess I need to cut that down. But so there's that. So the next thing I'd like to get into is like my mess, um, is learning how to make a slip knot. If I can find the end of this yarn that I actually want to use, there it is, not this one. So, all right, I'm a mess. You'll learn. That's all I am, is a mess. A mess. Everything's a mess. All right, so I crochet differently. Remember, I said holding your crochet hook is all up to you, whatever you find feels comfortable, right? Well, holding your yarn is the exact same thing. It's the exact same way. Now, I prefer to, my yarn gets wrapped. It just does. It's weird, but it's how I hold my tension. It's how I hold, whether my stitches are going to be super tight, whether they're going to be really loose. So I wrap my yarn. You do whatever feels comfortable to you. Everybody does something different. You can look at different videos online to see how other people do it, and that'll kind of give you an idea of how things may be. Um, maybe somebody else's technique will be a little bit more comfortable for you. This is just what I found is comfortable for me. And over the last, let's see, I started crocheting in 2018. So over the last almost 5 years, this is what I've found is comfortable for me. And I do end up with a what I call a yarntation, a yarn indentation on my finger from my tension because I hold things super tight. But slipknot. So the slipknot. When I first learned to crochet, I got this amazing how to crochet book, and it came with some crochet hooks and a couple of these weird little stitch markers that I don't even have anymore because they were trash. They were cheap. Um, the uh, the crochet hooks got passed down to my niece when she wanted to learn. But in the book, it tells you how to create a slip knot, and I can't even begin to tell you how it says to do it because it didn't work for me. So I had to teach myself a different way to do it. I watched videos and videos and videos and videos, and I finally found a technique that works for me, and that is literally just taking the yarn, wrapping it around two fingers like this until it is crossed. Whoopsies. Make sure you have a long enough tail. You're going to hear me say that. Tails. Tails are important. Tails are so important. So you're going to take this and you're going to wrap it around until you end up the cross like that. And you're going to hold it with your thumb. And you're going to flip your fingers over. And you're going to pass this one underneath. Just like this. Right? So then you're going to pull your fingers out without pulling the yarn out. So you should have something that looks similar to this. Now, if you already know how to make a slip knot, you have a specific way of doing it, great. Do it that way. I should have known how to do a slip knot because I was in Girl Scouts for my whole life. And we did multiple ropes courses and knot tying exercises and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so you end up with something similar to that, right? So then you pull your tail and it pulls it tight, right? And you still have this long tail. Now, the reason for the long tail is because at the end of your project, you're gonna have to sew this thing in. And if you're not good at sewing, well, get good. Just kidding. I'm still not great at it. I'm just not. I'm not. A lot of times I'll just crochet them in, and hide them, and everything is tied off with a knot, some type of knot in some way, shape, or form. So it doesn't, even if this tail comes out, of wherever or whatnot, it's not gonna make a difference. It's not gonna unravel the whole project because of the fact that I've tied it off into a knot. All right, so now you've got this weird little slip knot thingy, right? And you got your tail hanging out there. You're gonna take your hook, and this white is a worsted weight yarn, just like that gray was that I showed you, which is why I'm using an I. I usually use an I. It's kind of my go-to. The only other one I use is a J, and that's just because if a pattern calls for an H, I have to use an I. If a pattern calls for an I have to use a J. And the reason for that is my tension in my stitches is ridiculously tight. And so because of that, remember that thing on the label that I showed you where it says that it's a 4x4 square and you should have 13 single crochets and 14 rows? Yeah, I that ends up being like a 2x2 just because of the tightness of it all. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is how to do a chain. And a chain is super simple. Once you get to this part, the only thing you really have to master is trying to figure out how you're going to hold this, right? Which is the reason for the whole wrap, right? Because you need to hold the knot, which is this part here. You need to hold the knot for your first chain. If you don't, you see what's happening here? I've pulled it until the tail is tiny, and if I were to keep on pulling, I would end up pulling the slip knot completely out. So, I've learned that it's kind of necessary. Um, so you're gonna hold the knot like this. These two fingers just kind of do whatever they want, and I'm once again I do things differently, so however works for you. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take this, and you want your slip knot to be tight but not too tight onto the crochet hook like this. You want to still have a little bit of room in between your actual hook and the knot, which is over here. You know, because you need this to move around. Like if it doesn't move around, then you can't crochet. And that's something I learned, well, kind of over the years, because when I first started doing it, I was torquing this thing down, to where it was so tight it would just come right off, which is frustrating in and of itself. So, put that back on there, pull it out just a bit, and then so a chain is nothing more than you take your hook, and I'm weird. I do things a little differently. I use both hands to crochet like I'm knitting. Apparently, that's a knitting thing. I didn't know that, but so you yarn over. So what this is called is yarn over. So now your yarn is over top of your hook here. And then you're going to spin it so that you can grab onto this yarn. Remember that little hook part, the whole point of this hook is to hold your yarn. And you're going to pull that through that original loop. You see that? So you have something that looks similar to this, right? It's a little strange. Okay. And then you're going to do that again. See? Now we have two. And then you're going to just keep going. 3, 4, yarn over, pull through 5, yarn over, pull through 6, yarn over, pull through 7, right? So now you have something that looks like this. And I am going to attempt to zoom this in without totally making you guys dizzy, seasick, whatever. Instead, we're going to go this way. So, can you see it? This is called a chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, you never, ever count the loop that is on your hook. Ever. That one doesn't count. Because the only things that count is everything not on your hook. That one on your hook has not been included. And the reason it's not included is because once you learn stitches, this is just, look, you just keep pulling and pulling and pulling. So, it's just the loop on your hook. It's not an actual chain. So I'm gonna 8, 9, 10. Now you have 10. All right. Practice that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want to continue seeing more videos. I'm hoping to teach single and double crochet in the next video. Let me know what you think. What do you want to see? Do you already crochet? Is there something that you've wanted to learn but you can't figure it out? Is there a pattern you found, that you're stuck on something? Questions? What is it? Just let me know, and we'll go from there. I'll try to base my videos on, things that you guys want to learn, want to know how to do. So, let me know. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good day, and happy hooking.